Okay. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone doing fine in these hard times with fighting with coronavirus. Hope everyone is okay and ready to listen to my second lecture of behavior. Can you hear my voice?
Yes.
Okay, very good. So today we have 3 chapters from our book. I mean, today's lecture is about 3 chapters from our book. And these chapters are chapter 1, chapter 2, and chapter 3. So I will start with chapter 1. What's going on in chapter 1? This chapter 1 is about the childbirth and postpartum period. Okay, about the child birth rate, postpartum period, what's going on in a postpartum period with the mother, with the baby. We will talk about these issues. So nowadays, the childbirth every year, billions of children are born in this world, and 1/3 are born by the cesarean section, C-section. So this number of C-section is increasing because, mothers prefer cesarean, though it has lots of complications, medical complications. So doctors should recommend them not to use C-section if it is not necessary to use, because it's giving us many medical complications with mothers and with the babies. So it is about the brief information about the C-cesarean. 1/3 of the childbirths are done by the cesarean section. So I won't now focus on the medical complication which may cause because of the cesarean. This is a subject of another branch of the medicine. So I will focus on the premature births now. Premature birth is one of the problems which exist in this world nowadays. So what does it mean, premature birth? Premature birth happens when the pregnancy is less than 37 weeks. Okay, what's going on with the premature birth with a child? Okay, this premature birth causes lots of medical complications. It can lead to physical disability of the child and mental retardation. Premature birth can be caused because of the low income, because of the malnutrition, or because of the illness of the mother. Okay, so what does it mean, physical disability because of the premature birth? The low weight of the child, the undeveloped extremities of the child, and different medical complications, which can lead to even to the mental retardation. What does it mean, mental retardation? We know genetical mental retardation like Down syndrome and the X-fragile syndrome, and we know the metabolic mental retardation. It's because of the malnutrition of the mother or the illnesses of the mother. For example, infectious disease of rubella may cause mental retardation of the child. So these are the premature birth complications which may cause, which can happen with the children. So how we should evaluate this their baby's condition? So physicians are using the Apgar score to check the baby's physical condition after the first minutes of birth. So what does it mean? Apgar score is a test to check appearance of the baby, the pulse of the baby, the activity of the baby, the respiration of the baby, and the, just 1 second, and the grimace of the baby. So by the appearance So as you understand, APGAR score is a small abbreviation. So each letter stands for appearance, pulse, grimace, activity, and respiration. So by the appearance, we may check the skin color of the baby, by the pulse, the heart rate of the baby, by the grimace, we are checking the reflexes, reflex irritability. By the activity, we are checking the muscle tone of the baby. And by the respiration, we are checking the breathing rate. So we are measuring these by the scores, these conditions by the scores. The scores are 0, 1, and 2. The maximum score is 10. If the baby is just getting score 10, it means the baby is absolutely healthy. If the score is above of 7, I mean, if it's more than 7, if the baby just gathered the score 7, there is no imminent threat for survival. If the baby is getting score less than 4, it means that there is imminent threat for survival. Is everything understandable? Guys? Yes, okay, very good. So, by the APGAR score, we are evaluating the condition of the baby. Okay. What happened in postpartum period with the mothers? You know that the child delivery is a very stressful event for the mothers. So now I will explain you what may happen with the mothers in the postpartum period. 3 conditions may occur after the mother's delivering the baby. These are the baby blues. These are the major depression, and it may be the brief psychotic disorder. So let me first focus on the baby blues. So baby blues are mood swings after the delivery, immediate delivery of the baby. It can last up to 2 weeks. What's going on with that, and why it's going on with the mother? Because there is a hormonal changes, a big hormonal changes. There is an estrogen, progesterone drop. There is a thyroid hormone drop, and that's why these mood swings can occur. But except the hormonal changes, there is a psychological changes, psychological problems with the mothers, because a new baby is additional responsibility, and the mothers might be anxious not to handle the baby, the care of the baby. So because of that, these baby blues may just develop because of the psychological problems and the hormonal changes. But after 2 weeks, these mood swings can disappear. The baby blues doesn't need any medications, any additional support. But if there is a major depression which lasts more than 2 weeks, here we have to be very serious with the major depression. What's going on with the major depression? Major depression has the several severe symptoms like sad mood, suicidal thoughts, permanent depressive mood, physical inability to do even a very small things, not able to care to your baby. So this is the major depression, which lasts more than 2 weeks. So if the mother having the major depression, which caused by the postpartum period, we should prescribe the antidepressants. But of course, we should know what type of antidepressants we should prescribe to mother to help to cope with the major depression, which caused by the postpartum period because of the delivery of the baby. A very rare case may occur if the mother develops the brief psychotic disorder. It is a very rare, but it may happen, okay? It still happens because of the hormonal changes in the brain chemistry. You know, the baby delivery is a huge hormonal change in the body. So the same happens with the brain chemistry. Brain chemistry changes during the baby delivery. So what does it mean, the brain chemistry changes? We have different neurotransmitters which are responsible for our mood regulation, for our perception. So I will tell you two of them which are the most important. These are serotonin and the dopamine. So the balance between these two are important for our mood regulation and for our mental states. So what happened during the brief psychotic disorders? First of all, we have disbalance between these two neurotransmitters. So the symptoms can be hallucinations, delusions. There is a risk of the infanticide and the suicide. So if this brief psychotic disorder can happen with the mother, we should immediately hospitalize the mother or just prescribe the antipsychotic medications. Antipsychotic medications may relieve those hallucinations and delusions. So it is a very serious condition, the brief psychotic disorder, but it won't last more than 1 month because it is not a genetical disorder, but it can cause, because of the hormonal changes and the neurotransmitter disbalances into our mind. So I think that you can understand what is the difference between the baby blues, major depressive disorder, and brief psychotic disorders. During the baby blues, this is not as severe as the major depressive disorder, and the mood swings can disappear after a while. Major depressive disorder need a treatment with antidepressants, and the brief psychotic disorder needs a treatment with antipsychotics. If the mother has a major depressive disorder or the baby blues, we can even involve the psychotherapy techniques like supportive therapy or just any other techniques like CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, or any psychotherapy technique can be helpful in conjunction with pharmacological treatment. Okay. Now, of course, when the human is born and when the baby is born, the human developing through the life cycles from the infancy to the late adulthood. We have the life stages, and on each of the life stages, we have the specific skills we are developing through the life cycle. So let me start with the very, very beginning, with the birth, with the infancy, which is from the birth to 15 months. So what's going on? What is the main characteristic when the baby is born? From the very, very beginning of the birth to 15 months. It is the most important is bonding with the caregiver. Okay, bonding with the caregiver and the caregiver's bonding to the baby. So the baby's attachment is very important at this level, at this stage of life. So what's going on between the caregiver and the baby? Caregiver is a mother, of course, but the caregivers can be the nannies or some other family members. But the most deep emotional connection the baby might have with the mother, of course. So why it is so important attachment of the baby to the caregiver? Because when the baby is satisfying their needs, for example, when the baby is crying, why the babies are crying? Because they need to eat, or they need to feel safe, or they need to or when they are just crying, they have some needs that should be satisfied. So when they are crying, you are there to cuddle them, to give them food, to just calm them. So Anytime the baby is crying and you are there, the baby is learning that you are the person the baby can rely on and feel safe. Okay? So this attachment is very important. In case this attachment formed between the caregiver and the baby will develop as a healthy personality. Okay? But if this attachment doesn't happen really normally, we may have the separation anxiety disorder, which may turn into a very complicated situation for a baby. For example, the baby may just turn to a very selfish personality, may develop a low self-confidence. The world will be unsafe for the baby. So this the very fundamental thing, attachment with a caregiver, is very important on this initial stage of life. And if we have the separation anxiety disorder, in case the caregiver couldn't develop the attachment to the baby, we may have two types of the anxiety disorders, separation anxiety disorders. These are inhibited type of separation anxiety disorder, when the baby is withdrawn and overwhelmed, or disinhibited type, when the baby is trying to find in strangers the familiar personality. They're trying to touch the strangers. Even if they are strangers, they're trying to find some familiar relationship to develop this attachment with a stranger. So this is a disinhibited type of separation anxiety disorder, inhibited and disinhibited. During inhibited type of separation anxiety disorder, we have withdrawn and overwhelmed baby. So this is the danger of the developing unsuccessful attachment with the caregiver. That's why it is important to develop a really deep emotional connection with our babies. Okay, so what type of characteristic also can be during the this first life stage, during the birth and from birth to 15 months? Of course, the babies have the inherited reflexes, and we will have the reflexive behavior at this stage of life. So you might know the basic reflexes of the children, but I remind you once again, these reflexes are startle reflex or moro reflex. Startle reflex means, I will explain you what does it mean. When the baby is startled, reflexively, automatically, legs and hands are expanding. This is a reflexes to the, for example, some dangerous stimuli. Also, we have the palmar grasp reflex, palmar grasp reflex. When we are putting something into the palm of the baby, they are just handle these. They are just trying to touch these things with their fingers. They can just hold these things by their fingers. So this is palmar grasp reflex. We also have the sucking reflex and the rooting reflex. So what does it mean, sucking and rooting reflex? When we are stroking the baby on a cheek, they are automatically turn the head and trying to find the nipples to feed themselves. Okay, this is a rooting and sucking reflex. And we have also a Babinski reflex. Babinski reflex when we are touching or stroking the babies from the heel to the toe, and the toe is just moving up. The toe is moving up. This is a positive Babinski reflex. So all of these reflexes will disappear within 1 year. We know that Babinski reflex, if the same happens with the adult, this is already a pathological reflex. You may know the difference between the Babinski reflex, which is normal in babies, in infants. It can be pathological in adults. So in babies, the Babinski reflex is when we are touching or stroking from the heel to the toe. The toe is just upholding. So this is a Babinski reflex. So these are inherited reflexes which may occur from the birth to 15 months. Then these reflexes are disappearing. So, of course, as I mentioned, when the person is born, it's developing, and it's developing through the life stages. So, of course, the scientists who are done researches into the development, they just created the different theories of development. So there are several main theories of development, but I focus on two of them, which are the most important. And this is the Jean Piaget's cognitive developmental stages of the baby, and the Erikson social developmental stages of the personality. So let me explain each of these theory. Jean Piaget was the Swiss psychologist who just done the research and systematized the cognitive development of the personality, cognitive development of the baby. So what this theory is about? Jean Piaget thought that the intelligence is not inherited in us, but only the basic schemas of world is inherited in us. The baby is building the representation of the world mentally based on the basic inherited schemas. So what does it mean? The schemas. The schemas are the set of rules which are inherited in us, and the further development is possible because of these inherited schemas in us. Okay, the further knowledge is based on these basic schemas. So basic schemas are the set of rules. Okay, so what does it mean? I will explain you what does it mean, the schema. For example, if we are in a restaurant and we want to order the food, so what we should do to order the food on the first place? On the first place, we are entering to the restaurant. Then we are trying to find the appropriate place. Then we are just asking for menu. We're trying to find the proper meal we'd like to eat in this restaurant. Then we are just calling to the waiter or the waitress, and then we are ordering the food. These are the set of the rules, set of the steps we should do to get our food. So these are the basic schemas, basic inherited steps we should do to get what we want. Okay? Of course, the basic schemas of the infants and the adults are different. So for the infants, these are inherited reflexes, as I already mentioned. Sucking reflex, rooting reflex, Babinski reflex, startle reflex. These are inherited infant schemas. For the adults, I already mentioned what we should do. These are a set of rules of behavior we should do to get what we want. And we are developing, through this, we are trying to add more information to our basic schemas. So when we are adding more knowledge and more information to our basic schemas, we are developing. So also Jean Piaget thought that the humans are developing through the adaptation to the situation. And this adaptation, he divided into two main categories. And these were assimilation and accommodation. Through assimilation and accommodation, the human is just adapting to the environment, and though it's developing through the adaptation. Okay, so what does it mean? The assimilation and the accommodation. Assimilation, as I already mentioned, are the knowledge we already have. For example, we get into the new situation, we have some basic rules, and we can use these basic rules of behavior in this new situation, and we can handle this new situation. We don't need any extra knowledge to adapt to the situation. So this is an assimilation. And what does it mean, the accommodation? For example, we get in some strange situation, in a new situation, and the basic rules that we have doesn't working in this, they don't work in this new situation. So we need extra knowledge to adapt to the new situation. So this is an accommodation. Once more again, assimilation is already existing knowledge which is enough in the new situation to adapt to the situation, and accommodation is extra new knowledge which is needed to adapt to the new situation. So through this assimilation and accommodation, we can reach the equilibrium. During equilibrium, the person feels balanced between his or her inside world and the outer reality. And when the person feels this equilibrium, he is just getting balanced personality. He will be a balanced personality without any conflicts with the environment, and he or she can adapt his needs to the social needs, and he won't have any crisis with the environment, the personal crisis or personal conflict with the environment. That's why this adaptation is important for our development. But besides this, the Jean Piaget developed several stages of baby's cognitive development, and he divided this cognitive development into the 4 stages. The first stage of cognitive development is a sensory motor stage, which starts from the birth to 2 years old. The second stage is a pre-operational stage, which starts from 2 years old up to 7 years old. Then we have the concrete operational stage, which starts from 7 to 11 years. And the last stage is a formal operational, which starts from 11 years and lasts until adolescence and adulthood. So, of course, the division of these stages should mean something, and I will explain why Jean Piaget divided these stages and what's going on each of these stages. On sensory motor stage, the baby is just trying to realize the world and build the mental representation of the world by the sensory motor abilities. They are touching things. They are trying to sense things, okay? They have this, at this age, they have the mental representation and mental permanence of objects. They can imagine objects in their mind, and they can just build them the world by their mental representation through the senses and through the touch of different objects. So this is a sensory motor stage. At the pre-operational stage, which starts from 2 years to 7 years old, the baby is trying to interact with the world by the symbolical language. For example, they want to develop the relationship with you, and they are just using the toys, or just they are giving you a toys, and they are showing you that they want to make a friendship with you. This is a symbolical representation of friendship They are using toys, and they are just giving toys to show you that they want to play with you or to make a friendship with you. This is a symbolical representation of the world. Then we have the pre-operational stage, which starts from 7 to 11 years old. And what's going on this pre-operational stage? At pre-operational stage, the person already have the logic. They may understand the conservation rules and the seriation rules. Conservation rules. What does it mean? Conservation rules. When the child understands what does it mean? The volume. What does it mean? The shape, and what does it mean? The law of the mass. For example, the different shapes may just contain the same volume of the substances, for example. These are the conservation laws. Or they just can put things into the order. This is a seriation. They understand what does it mean, the order, and they can just ordering things. So these are the seriation rules. So at this pre-operational stage, they can understand these laws. At formal operation, this was the concrete operational stage, and now we have the formal operational stage. At this stage, the person already understands the abstract thinking. What does it mean love? What does it mean freedom? What does it mean friendship? We have abstract reasoning at this stage. At this stage, the person is developing logical way of thinking. They're developing the conscience. What does it mean wrong? What does it mean bad? They are developing the empathy towards other people. They understand freedom, and this is the abstract reasoning. These type of things is going on the formal operational stage. So let me summarize these stages. The first stage is sensory motor stage, which starts from birth to 2 years old. Then we have the pre-operational stage from 2 to 7 years old. Then we have the concrete operational from 7 to 11 years old. And then we have the formal operational, which starts from 11 years old and lasts until adolescence and adulthood. So this was the Piaget's cognitive developmental theory. The next one, who created the developmental theory of the personality, was the American-German psychologist Erik Erikson. So he realized that the person is developing with predetermined stages, predetermined 8 stages. So each of the stages are just interdependent to each other. And if the person is not developing harmoniously on the previous stage, he cannot just be healthy personality on the next stage. So I will explain you what does it mean, these 8 stages of social development of the personalities. Erik Erikson realized that on each stage of the personality, the personality feels the personality crisis. There is a conflict between the personality needs and between the demands of the society. So if the person can develop healthy and can develop normally on each stage, they will be balanced into the future stages. But if they cannot handle the pre-order stage, it means that they will develop unhealthy personalities. So let me just tell you about these 8 stages. The first stage is a stage of the trust versus mistrust. So this stage starts from the birth to 18 months. Of course, you might have a question, how the baby might know what does it mean trust versus mistrust. But this is unconscious things going on with the baby. As I mentioned, we have at this period of life stage the attachment towards the caregiver. So if the caregiver is very sensitive towards the child's needs, very attentive, very caring, the baby is developing healthy. They have trust towards world, and the person may develop the person may develop in a really healthy way. They might have the hope towards the world, and in case the difficult situation in his adulthood, there might be people who might support him. So if the baby gets at this stage enough care, attention, and the warmth, they will develop into the healthy personalities with the hope into the world, with the trust towards the world. But if the baby didn't have or doesn't have the good attention from the caregiver, or they are neglected or abused by the caregivers, they develop mistrust toward the world. So they might have fear in their adulthood towards the world. They won't be sure about the safety of the world. So this is the danger of developing on this stage if the baby does not get enough care at this stage. Trust versus mistrust. The next stage on Erik Erikson's social developmental stages is autonomy versus shame. So this stage starts from 18 months to 3 years old and lasts until 3 years old. What's going on in this stage? At this stage, the child developing autonomy. They are exploring their skills. They want to gain autonomy. They trying to explore what are their skills. They can just dress independently, undress independently, go to the toilet autonomously, go and just play with the games they want to play, or choose the toys they want to choose without help of the patient, without help of the parents. So they are trying to gain autonomy, and we should give this autonomy to children at this stage of development. Otherwise, if we just overwhelm the child and not give this chance to the child to explore their skills, the baby might have the shame about their skills. They might understand that they do not have the skills to undress themselves, to choose the things what they want, to go to the toilet by themselves. So what does it mean? What should happen into their future life? Of course, the baby who had this chance at this stage will develop as an independent personality who can just make a decision independently and act independently into the society. But if the child didn't have this opportunity at this stage of life, they will develop as a dependent personalities with insecurity, with low self-esteem. So this is a danger of this stage, when there is a conflict on this stage. Next stage is the third stage is initiative versus guilt. So this stage starts from 3 years and lasts to 5 years. So initiative versus guilt. Still, this stage similar to the stage number 2. At this stage, the children try to be initiative. At this stage, the babies, what they are doing, mostly they are playing. So at this stage, they are trying to take initiative into this play, and we should give this opportunity to give them this initiative. But of course, we should try to explain them that the other game players are also having the right to play this game, not to overwhelm other game players. So the child should understand the responsibility on their initiatives, okay? But we shouldn't overwhelm children. We shouldn't punish them. We shouldn't be too much overwhelming to them. Otherwise, they will develop a sense of guilt. So we should encourage their initiative to play games with other peers, okay? And if the baby is having good opportunities of these initiatives, the person will develop really very self-confident in their self-confident about their skills and abilities. The next stage, the stage number 4, is industry versus inferiority. This stage starts from age 5 to 12 years old. So what's going on at this stage? At this stage, the child is becoming industrious, you know, and they depend too much on the teacher's opinions. So teachers should be very careful giving evaluation at this stage. Because in case the teacher wouldn't evaluate properly the child's intentions, the child can become inferior. They might feel inferiority. So we should encourage industry in them, okay? So at this end, we should evaluate their, for example, if they did a good homework, we should evaluate good this homework that they done, and just give them the good marks to get them know that they deserve these marks, and in this case they will become more competent about their skills. So this type of personality will develop as a competent personality who knows what does it mean being good, what does it mean being professional, what does it mean being correct. So next stage of Erikson's social developmental stage is identity versus role confusion. So this stage develops from 12 to 18 years old. So at this stage, very important, the ego identification and role identification, sex role identification. At this stage, the teenager, the adolescents try to find their place in the world. So they want to be involved in the peer group activities. They want to be accepted into the society. They're trying to identify their roles in the world. So at this stage is developing the fidelity. If the society will accept them, the teenager will develop fidelity towards the society and show this fidelity toward others. So this type of personality who will be accepted by the society can develop fidelity towards others. If not, there will be a role confusion. And role confusion, what does it mean? When the person is not identified with its role, with its gender role, or with just a social role. And this type of personality may turn to a criminal personality because society did not accept him or her, and it may be really a role confusion for a person. So that's why it is very important to support teenager at this stage of life to develop a healthy personality, who can develop fidelity towards others and towards the society. Next stage is intimacy versus isolation. So this stage, you just start from 18 years old and lasts until 40 years old. Intimacy and isolation. At this stage of life, the person already developing, already accepted by the society and developing the loving relationship, just getting married and developing the relationship with the friends, and the person is already accepted. But if the person could not develop this loving relationship with the others, with the family members, or with the couldn't just get married, or just couldn't find his proper job, he might be isolated from the society, and he might just feel loneliness from this separation from the society. So intimacy versus isolation is also an important stage of developing of the personality. Then we have the stage of generativity versus stagnation. So this stage develops from 40 to 65 years old. At this stage, the person is more authoritative, success is already achieved. This stage will develop the virtue of care, you know. The person is just realized what the life is. At this stage, they have more power. So at this stage, the person is still needs some motivation to do a lot in his life. So the generativity should be encouraged at this stage of life. Otherwise, there will be a stagnation. There will be a midlife crisis if there will be a stagnation, and midlife crisis will turn to depression for the personality, and then depression may just turn to thoughts of the suicide, thoughts of the isolation. And that's why this midlife crisis may occur at this life stage, okay? The midlife crisis at this life stage can be because of the loss of the job, because loss of the status, loss of the healthiness, and because of that, this stagnation is very dangerous at this stage of life. Next stage, we have ego integrity versus despair. So this stage develops in late adulthood from 65 years old and until it lasts until death. So ego integrity versus despair. So what does it mean? The person who is 65 years old or even older already gone its life, and they are trying to reevaluate the past life. They might be very proud of their past accomplishments. So if they are proud of their past accomplishment, there is really easy to achieve the ego integrity. But in case the person reevaluates their life like desperate, like they didn't do anything worth in their life, they might be despair. And this type of personality, this type of person can get into the depression, and there is a high risk of being lonely at this stage of life, and even they might have the thoughts of the suicide. So at this stage is very important to support these elder people with the psychotherapy techniques, and the physicians should support them to find good moments in their past life to help them to with the ego integrity. So these are the 8 stages of social development of the personality, which was developed by the Erik Erikson, which is important in the development of the personality. Okay, so these two major theories are really important: Jean Piaget's cognitive developmental stages and Erik Erikson's social developmental stages. Okay, so now I think it's time for a break, if you would like. Okay, for 10 minutes, and then I will continue. Okay. Is everything understandable for you, or I might answer your questions if you have questions? Okay. Would you like a break, guys? Break for 10 minutes.